Hi everybody and welcome to Dux-Soup. Hi Elvin, nice to see you.
Hi Joe, thank you.
So hi everyone, welcome to Dux-Soup, and for those of you that are here on the button, thank you for being on time. While we give everyone else a few minutes to join, let me introduce myself. I'm Jo Henderson, a part of the marketing team at Dux-Soup, and some of you may have seen me before, but for those who haven't been on our previous webinars, then a very warm welcome to you. We run webinars every 2 weeks and they're always focused on Dux-Soup and designed to show users how to get more out of the tool. If you haven't tried Dux-Soup yet, I'll pop a free trial link into the chat. So go and have a play without any credit card details and see if it works for you. I'll pop that in as I hand over to Elvin. So let me quickly run through a few housekeeping points. Firstly, some of you may have noticed that Beth should have been on with us today. Unfortunately, she can't make it now, so you're stuck with me instead. Everyone will be on mute during the session. If you have a question, just pop it into the questions box and we'll answer them at the end. We do ask that you keep on topic though, please. If I can see questions coming in for Dux-Soup during the session, I'll try and answer those as we go as well. The session will be recorded and sent to you afterwards, and it will also be posted on our webinars page in a day or two. I'll be giving you the opportunity to win one of our lovely Dux-Soup caps, and we all know that I have one, well, Elvin has one too at the end of the session, so make sure you have one until the end to find out how you can win one for yourself. Now today I think we're in for a great treat. So having run through some of the content with Elvin over the course of the last week, I found a few snippets in there that I've been passing on to our team. And given that they have been using, or we have been using Dux for so long, some of these tips actually even our team didn't know about. So I'm really, really thrilled that Elvin is coming to share some of his insight with us today. So Elvin Mutasamy is the founder of Recogitate. He runs Dux-Soup on behalf of his clients. So he's one of our agency partners. And I first met Elvin about 3 months ago, having noticed him posting some really thought-provoking content on our Dux-Soup Facebook user group. We had a chat around how he was using Dux-Soup, and I could very quickly see that he has an incredibly technical mind and was doing some exciting things with the tool. Subsequently, I learned that Elvin was, or is even, an algorithmic trader, which may explain why he has a head for data, but I'm not going to spoil it. Elvin is going to share some of his insights with us that he's learned since using Dux-Soup. So this session will be applicable to both Pro and Turbo users, and while some of the campaign features are only available in Turbo, Pro users can apply a lot of the learnings that Elvin shares here. For example, connection messages and sales navigator tips. So plenty of good stuff for everyone to learn from. Elvin has already changed the way some of the Dux team are running their LinkedIn campaigns, and hopefully his session will do the same for you. So without further ado, I think we're ready to get started. So I will hand over to Elvin. Thank you.
Cool, thanks Jo. Thanks for having me on. I'm really excited to be on the webinar and share my experience with Dux-Soup. So before I launch into the optimizing of your campaign strategy, I'd like to give everyone a background to myself. So as Jo mentioned, I have a background in systematic and algorithmic trading. So I was in finance for about 15 years. And in a nutshell, what that really means is institutions that need to buy securities like, Google stock or Apple stock could be the size of, $50 million. Normally they'll employ software to slice up the order to, randomize the timing to minimize the impact on the market. So that's what that's all about. As of last year, I decided to set up my own software business, which is Recogitate Limited, which is based in the UK. And I've listed a few areas of focus here on the slide. So, of course, we focus on trading technology. So that really just, leads on to our experience. So we offer consultancy and software development in that area. Automation is really at the heart of what my company does. So this is where we help business owners to improve their operations and technology in general. So I've listed a few areas like data management, looking at helping with automated bookings or appointments, digitizing forms, automated accounting, and even more recently with AI, upcoming in the last 6 months, we're helping clients with OpenAI and ChatGPT integration. And finally, we also offer LinkedIn automation services. So I run Dux-Soup on behalf of clients and on behalf of other businesses as well. So I'm really excited to talk more about that. So how did I hear about Dux-Soup and what got me interested? So as I set up my business last year, of course, you need clients, and the first thing I was doing a lot of networking, physical networking, virtual networking, and I came across a colleague that said to me that he'd made a 10K sale in Dux-Soup. And at that point, I didn't even know automation existed in LinkedIn. And I think it's typical that you get two types of people in LinkedIn. You get the corporate, which is what I used to be, that would log in once a month, and you kind of use it as your CV, as it were. And then you have the business owners, which is what I am now, and you kind of live in LinkedIn, right? So I started to use Dux-Soup myself, and because of the trading technology service that I provide, the technology itself is quite standard across the world. So I can have clients in Brazil, Mexico, America, and so forth. So I targeted some clients in Turkey and South Africa, and I was successful and made some sales there. So why did I bring in LinkedIn automation services? Well, initially, Dux-Soup was built to automate repetitive tasks, right? If I've understood the story correctly, the founder, Will, who built this software, built this for his wife to automate the prospecting. And if you think about it, it's kind of what I'm doing as a business in terms of automation for all sort of processes. So it really aligned well with my company objectives, so it made sense to bring it on. And I also like this idea of helping clients that are less technically minded, because I think there's a lot of people out there that like the idea of automation, but are scared of it and probably need a bit of assistance. So this is where we can step in and help. I also take a very different approach to the data. So I'm data driven with the software, which basically means I measure everything, and I measure it because I want to optimize and get better results month on month. And finally, I've been running my global agency business for about 8 months, and I now have clients globally in different languages, which is really interesting. So if I start off with the first lesson, so it's all about creating an optimal campaign list to begin with, right? And how do you do that? Well, you need to start off with Sales Navigator, in my opinion, because Sales Navigator, for those that don't use it, is really just a way of filtering the LinkedIn database. So as an example, if you wanted to create a group of gym owners in London, well, you can select that sector, you can select that title, founder or owner, and you will come up with a list of 1 million people or so, right? So that's the starting point. Now, here's a tip that I'll give quite early on. Sales Navigator is quite expensive, and it may be a reason why not many people want to use it. So you may typically spend £80 or so in the UK, but what you can do is you can create multiple lists, and you can use the Dux-Soup scan feature, which is quite nice. So the scan feature of Dux-Soup is all about taking that Sales Navigator list, extracting it and put it into Excel. So you can create, thousands, hundreds of lists or so over a month if you want to, and you can set yourself up for 6 months to a year effectively, and then cancel your subscription, right? And what I've noticed is, LinkedIn will often give you a 50% discount to entice you back, so you'll get it at £40 next time you go back there anyway. So something to think about if you want to try that. Now, once you've got your list going, I've given some suggested filters which are really interesting. First of all, within Sales Navigator, you'll see an area called Spotlights, and I'm going to share my screen shortly and I'll show you this. 2 areas to look out for: change jobs in the last 90 days. The reason I use that is, again, this is just my theory. People that have changed jobs in the last 90 days are typically, I think, receptive to change because they're in a new organization, so they might be receptive to your service or product. So I think it's well worth targeting those kind of people. Secondly, you get to filter on people that posted on LinkedIn in the last 30 days, right? Now, I use that as a proxy in terms of someone's activity on the platform, because the last thing you want to do is create a list of corporates like Elvin used to be and target me, and I never check the platform, right? Because you're not going to have any success. Whereas if you start to post more regularly, well, those business owners that use it for marketing and so forth, you're going to hit people like me, and that's kind of, going to hopefully lead to some success for you. So secondly, you also want to be filtering on connections. So an obvious one, but you can do it. You can select 2nd and 3rd degree, and then in your messaging, you can reference that you have people in common, and that does work, and that people are receptive to that. An obvious one, regional filter. I use this quite a lot, and this is somewhat limited because you can't do it forever. But so I live in a place called St Albans in Hertfordshire, and quite often I'll create a St Albans based group, and then I'll reference in my message, I am a business owner from St Albans. I'm looking to connect with people in St Albans and build a network and so forth, and it usually resonates quite well. Once you've gone through those steps and you still have a very large list, you can then refine your list using Boolean search options. And all that really is you can click on the search box, you can type in, for example, senior in quotation marks, and then you can use an and operator or an or operator without quotation. And then you can put like consultant in quotation marks, and it will filter on those two keywords over your existing list. So you'll just get a more narrow list. Again, I'll show you that when I share my screen. In terms of ideal list size, well, I recommend lists of no more than 250 prospects per campaign. Now, the way I came up with that number is Dux-Soup's default is to connect with 25 people per day, randomized. So roughly it will take 10 days to get through that entire 250 people in terms of connections. Then if you're going to have a follow-up sequence with messages, and typically mine are about a week between follow-up messages, you have to imagine it's going to take 3 weeks post the 10 days before someone, before that sequence may end. It is a moving target. It's not perfect because it's all about when that person accepts, which could be, 4 weeks from now, for example. But in any case, just gives you a way of trying to control the data that can be measured. And I think it's so I know roughly 4 to 5 weeks, that campaign will pretty much be done 80–90%, and I can measure it. So that's my logic there. And also you don't really want to bottleneck the system in terms of what Dux-Soup has to do. If you're managing errors in the platform too, you want to be dipping in there, seeing if there's anything to fix, resolving it. If you've got thousands of things going on, it makes it more complicated. Of course, when the 250 are done, you can run another 250 in parallel. So, you can operate in that manner. Once you've actually, you've gone through that entire process and you're happy with the list, you've got your 250. What I recommend people do is actually use the scan feature to quality check your data. This part is really important. So scanning, again, will pull and extract the basic information from the profile, and it can be done pretty quickly, actually. Within a 10-minute period, you can get 250 people, no problem. So once you've got it into Excel, my recommendation is to check, job title, industry, region. Was it what you actually selected in LinkedIn? Every time I do a search in Sales Navigator and I do a search for location of United Kingdom, I always get Dubai or America in there. I have no idea why, right? So I take those out obviously on the Excel. When it comes to the first name, well, LinkedIn is all about creating automated messaging, but you want it to look as human as possible, right? So you don't want to have any mistakes on the first name. So I've often seen people put like Mr. Elvin or Prof. Elvin, and if you just leave it, it will say hi Prof, and it will look fake, right? So there is a name scrubber, and again, I'll point to that when I share my screen, where you can update anything that's missed in the name scrubber, and it will remove that and clean up the name when it sends the message out. Or you might decide to just remove them completely. Finally, I recommend checking company. So if you like to use and reference company in a dynamic way, check the length of the company name, because again, if people do put long names, and if it's so long, it will look a bit strange on the messaging. So that would be my recommendation. So I'm just going to share my screen now, so bear with me. Okay. So here's my Sales Navigator view. I've already got it filtered actually on a campaign I'm running already, which is on recruitment. So industry is recruitment, geography, St Albans, Hertfordshire, so that's local. Connections, so that's where you set your second and third degree. Function, I've selected HR. Seniority, senior, owner, CXO, and this is the spotlight section here. Now, for some of you, you might see this set up a little bit differently. I noticed this the other day when I was doing it for a client. They make it look a little bit different. I'm not sure why. I'm not sure why the Sales Navigator would be different, but it was like a toggle, like on/off. So, but if anyone's got questions on that, they can send me an email afterwards. In any case, so you select those two, and you come up with, well, so that's not bad. So 400 odd people. I'd probably extract that out, and that would be, you know, 2 campaigns that I run. Now, in terms of Boolean, you come up here and you type in, so let's go senior, and so use capital and consultant, enter. So there we go. So now the list has gone down to 147, and you can see now I've got senior consultant, and so forth. So now I've got a more sort of accurate list potentially. So I can now use the scan feature, and just to show people that. So now I've got the 147. If I hit scan profiles, the robot will do its thing, put it into Excel. When it's completed, you want to be clicking download data, and that will put it into a CSV file. And then at that point, you can open it up and check your data. So fairly straightforward. Now, in terms of the name scrubber, because I did mention that. So if you go to the options of Dux-Soup, so again, hit the duck, hit the toggle, or the cog, sorry, and then you'll get these options under actions, name scrubber, here it is. So I can see at the moment prof isn't there, so let's go, I type in prof, click away. So now it will consider that if there is a prof Elvin, it will move that prof and it will say hi Elvin, so it should work in that way. Okay, so just going to head back to presentation. So second recommendation, create an effective campaign structure. So this is really an interesting area. So first of all, my recommendation to everyone is to use the Dux-Soup Turbo license. I think it's well worth the investment, and it allows you to greater control in terms of your campaign sequencing. You can connect to CRMs and use some of the automation features if that interests you. And more importantly, you can have control on the automated follow-up, so you can have the different messages that go out. So well worth doing if you care about optimizing your campaign. So when you're managing your campaign sequence, when you're creating that campaign in Dux-Soup, you'll be able to drag those tiles around the window. I think that was a new feature maybe a few weeks ago, and that's quite nice. So you can actually decide whether you want to do a visit first, or you want to do a connection first, do an email first, or whatever it may be. Now, so what is the recommended sequence? So I kind of give the outcome of the study before I actually show the study, but I will explain this further in point 4. So the recommended sequence is visit the profile, follow the profile, connection request, endorse a skill, visit, follow, visit, follow, visit, follow. Okay, and I will explain that further in a second. When you do your follow-up messages, I recommend leaving 3 or 4 days, or actually go a little bit longer. I like to use a week, but the longer the better, I think, because you want it to seem genuine, and realize people don't use LinkedIn every day, so it makes it a bit more real. Now, here is the counterintuitive advice. Consider a blank connection message. So why and what does that mean? So going back to the sequence, you're going to do a visit, you're going to do a follow, and then you're going to do a connection request with a blank message. You're not going to say anything. Then you're going to endorse the skill, then you're going to visit, and in your follow-up one, that's your opportunity to give your thank you for connecting, I'm Joe Blogs, and so forth. Now, this might seem a bit strange, and this was a bit strange to me and a bit alien to me, but I think there is a little bit of logic to it. And my way of thinking with this is that if you imagine, lots of people are on LinkedIn, lots of people use algorithms in different forms, right? So people are used to receiving messages from lots of people. If you send a blank message, you might say, well, how does that work? Why would that, why is that helpful? So before you did the blank message, you did a visit profile. They probably saw that. You did a follow profile. Well, following, you get to see their content. They know that, they get notified of that. So you're creating this kind of positive engagement before doing the connection request. Then you're sending a blank message. Well, now they've got nothing to judge you on because there's nothing there. So it's an interesting point. But in the back of their mind, they've gone, oh, they visited me, they followed me. Okay, I've got a connection request. There's nothing salesy in there because there's no message. I'll accept it. And to be honest, for me, getting the connection request is the most important part of the process, right? So again, just explaining these other points a bit further. Following your profile is all about, seeing someone's content on your feed, but you don't need to connect with them, right? And they get notified of that. endorsing a profile is all about endorsing a skill. Now, the endorsing skill, the reason I do it after connection request, it reinforces this positive behavior because you've set yourself up in a nice way. You visited, you did a follow, they know about that. You've connected, well, they've accepted you. You endorse their skill, you're in the good books now, because effectively they're like, oh, this is really nice. And more often than not, I see people reply back going, thanks for endorsing me. And then it sets you up nicely to go in and introduce yourself and try and get the meeting or whatever you want to do. So that's my suggestion. And I guess I just explain a bit further here on the slide. It just sets up that nice passive way of engaging with a new prospect. And in your connection message, when you do it, try to focus on the benefits of the prospect. Don't mention any sales. Use the regional angle. Use you can mention people in common. And I like to use the regional angle and an informal angle. So I'll often say, I'm in St. Albans. How about we just meet for a coffee? I'd love to learn more about you. I don't say anything else about my company or anything else. And that really tends to work quite well. And then you just have a chat, you meet up, and then you can actually do the sales when you meet them in person. Right, the third point to discuss, measure the data to improve. So why measure? So a very simple point. Without measuring your data, how can you get better? How do you know what's going on in the world, right? And again, this is very much all about my background in trading. You have to measure the data to know what you're doing to improve your execution. So for me, this was just, as soon as I saw this tool, I was like, how do I measure this thing? Once you've got your data, you need to analyze it. You need to, you're going to make changes to your campaigns, and then you're going to see your relative performance, from the next month to this month. Did your acceptance rate go up, down? What should you change, and so forth. You can start to do some testing. Most importantly, actually, there may be people out there that may be a little bit scared of using these tools because, there is, a chance that LinkedIn send you a warning, and some of us may have got that, right? So you want to feel comfortable in the platform. And again, I come from an angle of trading. I want to feel comfortable when something is trading. When something's in a black box, I want to see it, right? So what I've done and created is a daily dashboard. So if I've got the limit set at 25, I need to make sure there are 25 connection requests going out, right? And I'll share my dashboard with you in a second. And again, you can see the number of visits, the number of messages sent, and so forth. Kind of mentioned this point already, but just making sure the Dux-Soup throttle controls are working as you expect to. Real-time analytics. So this is now all about how do you get the data into a form that you can actually do something with it. So what's really nice is that Dux-Soup integrates with all these other platforms. The most simplest, I think, is Google Sheets. So you can take the URL of your Google Sheet, you can go to the options, connect, webhook, put it in there, and then you do need to add an app script, which is a bit of coding to the Google Sheet, and that will allow everything to take place and the data will start to feed into your Google Sheet. For anyone interested, I've put the link here. So Dux-Soup have given a blog on this, which is really useful and it's really straightforward to go through. So you can set yourself up for that. Now, being a software company, we've written additional coding to make the data more granular, so it's easier to understand. And it's something that my clients get as well, so I allow them to see everything real time. So let me share my screen with you so I can show you that. Okay, so here's my dashboard. The way this works is you can see right now the algorithm is off and the last algo event was 3:15. Okay, so I know hasn't done anything for an hour, that's fine. Did run today, so I feel confident that that's okay. I started this campaign last week, actually, and I wanted to kind of demonstrate the blank message theory with you, just to show that it does work. So I'm using that sequence I mentioned to you. And what you can see here is, here are all the action types, and this is last week. And all you need to do is look at each day. So you can see Monday, okay, I didn't send any connection requests. Everything was getting ready, probably gearing up the system. I sent out 16 on the Tuesday, 62% connection requests, quite happy with that. Then you can go through the week. So it kind of dropped off a little bit, but got to 37%. Okay, so I sent 147 connection requests, 54 people accepted. And you can see now that, like I said, I'm around the 25 mark with a bit of randomization. What's really funny, if you look at today, you can see I've done 26 connection requests and 22 people came back, 85%. That's the highest I've ever got. It just happens to be today. And it's using that, blank message approach. So really interesting to note that. The other thing I can see on what I give to clients is I already filter on the messaging, so clients can just go straight away, look at a tab, see the messaging, because it's high volume, so it's easy to get lost in the messaging. So I try and make it easy for my clients to see what's going on. And then in the summary view, I can see line by line everything that's going on. So last thing, so this guy Milan accepted me, 3, so pretty straightforward. So let me just head back to the presentation. So in terms of the study, so this last point is all about analyzing your data, right? And I'll just quickly explain what you're looking at here. So you've got 2 charts here, and I've taken 5 clients at random, and I've tried to show you the activity or the relative activity for those 5 clients. So clients 1 to 3, you can see that they have an acceptance rate of around 20%. So kind of look at the 2 charts together. The left chart, this is a stacked chart, so every color is an action type. So red is the connection request. So for client 1, they sent 458 connection requests, 88 people accepted, so that's 20%, and you can see that on chart 2 and so forth. So what this chart really shows you really quickly is that, first of all, clients 1, 2, 3, they were using the same campaign strategy, which you can see in the key: visit, connection request with a message, visit, follow up. And you can see that they've got a relatively low acceptance rate, right? What's interesting to note also, client 2 has been more active with the number of messages received versus 1 and 3, right? Because that's important metric too. And the difference here, and the reason for that, is client 2 was using that regional approach, was targeting 2nd and 3rd degree, and was going for the personable, let's meet for a coffee, and it was more receptive to the audience. 1 and 3 were they were a little bit too salesy on the connection message, and I think the follow through, the responses were quite low for that reason. Now, client 4 is using the recommended sequence. So you saw my data on the dashboard. This is another client I did it for prior to my data, what you saw. And you can see here in the key, so it's the visit, follow, connection request, blank message, endorse, visit, follow. And you can see they've improved their acceptance by around 13%. So that's quite an interesting observation. You can see that, again, they're quite active in terms of messaging, so clearly that their messaging is quite good. Now, you're probably all wondering, well, what's client 5? They've got 78%. We all want to achieve that, right, or higher. This is really interesting because client 5 is actually very similar to campaign strategy to 1 and 3. So connection request with a message, visit, follow. The reason it's so high is that they are headhunters. So they are actually targeting a specific sector and looking for people for jobs. Now, my theory on this is that, if you get targeted by a headhunter, I think that you're always receptive to that, because it's human nature to want to know your value. So you're probably going to accept that connection request. You're probably going to find out, how much does that job pay? Am I interested in hearing that? Yes, no, okay, I move on. So that's my theory. I think that's why this tool works really well for the recruitment industry. And it's no surprise why I'm targeting recruitment people in my campaign. So what are the takeaways? First of all, generate optimal campaign lists, target active users of the platform. Don't, make sure you're not going for dormant people. Use the filters or the spotlight filters to help you there. Consider the list size. Don't create lists of like 3,000 people. Make it small and sensible so you can measure it. Consider 2nd and 3rd degree connections. Target a prospect list in your region. Again, you can't do it too much, but it's valuable and it's easy to kind of formulate your conversation or your messaging around the region. What kind of messaging tends to work? Well, we've mentioned mentioning people that you have in common. Demonstrate that you're interested in their background and experience, and of course, consider a blank message and do that connection or follow-up. Use that as your engagement later on in the sequence. So what's the best campaign sequence? So we've said it already: visiting, follow ahead of the connection request. One thing I'll just quickly say on that point: when you do an enroll, it's worth mentioning that does a visit already, so you don't need to double up and put visit, follow. You can actually do follow, then connection request. Endorse the skill, like I said, after connection request, and definitely leave enough time between your messages. I would recommend a week. And focus on the acceptance rate, right? if that prospect doesn't accept your connection request, Dux-Soup doesn't do anything. And moreover, you actually compromise your account, because you run the risk of people saying don't know you, and then that will flag to LinkedIn. So you might compromise your account in that way. So definitely consider that. And just remember, it's all about growing your network, right? The more acceptances you get, the more people are going to see your content when you start to post. So it becomes, you might make a sale in 3 to 6 months' time. It might not be immediate, right? So that's definitely worth considering. Right, and that brings me to the end of the webinar. If anyone would like to get in touch or learn more about what we're doing, feel free to send me an email, connect with me on LinkedIn, send me an email, or something new that I've done. I've got an AI chatbot that is trained on this presentation. It's trained on my company. Feel free to ask it questions, learn more about me. We'd love to, talk more with you. So thank you. Are there any questions?
Always helps, I think, if you come off mute when you're trying to speak. Sorry about that, Elvin. That was amazing. I think for me, I've got a few notes down here. The blank connection message, I think that's genius. We talk so much about the fact that everything must be personalized, and the effort that goes into that sometimes. But to see the statistics that you're working with, that you're sending this sequence, and also the fact that you've shared that sequence with us, I think that's amazing. We've had a few questions around that actually about endorsing, and I think some people have concerns that endorsing might seem somehow a bit shallow if you don't actually know the contact.
I've got an interesting answer to that. So I was 100% exactly the same. So I only started doing this. This discovery was in the last sort of 4 to 5 weeks. So this is somewhat still new to me. I wrote off endorsing right away. I wrote off following right away. And it's only when I did this for a client, I started to see people come back going, thanks for endorsing, because you're probably thinking that they don't know me. So this is a bit weird, right? But actually, I've been doing this, like I say, for the last 5 weeks. I've not seen a single negative comment. I've only seen people come back saying, thanks for endorsing. And I normally just leave it on top one skill. I don't really do the others, but you can experiment with that.
That's really interesting. Thanks for the clarity around that. I think that's who asked that. Amy and Rick asked that, so hopefully that's answered that question. Amanda has asked whether or not we can have, or you could provide your list of the name scrubber suggestions.
Yeah, sure. I'll have a look in the tool and I'll send that to you, Joe, and maybe you can distribute that. I'll be honest, I haven't really put too many in there. I think to be honest, off the top of my head, it's like I did have an example of Mr. Dot and Mr. And to be honest, I learned the hard way. I ran a campaign. I saw, hi, Mr. I was like, oh, that's disaster. So, I've gone through all those mistakes. But Professor, Prof, and there was another one. I'll have a look. We can talk afterwards, and I'll try and share that with everyone.
Sure. So we can share those and find that out. That's fab. So Lindsay asked, now let me just check on how I'm reading this, so just bear with me. She said, so if you're looking to save money on Sales Navigator, you create your list and export to Excel on Dux-Soup, and then her question, the crux of it, I think, is, and then do you get Dux-Soup to work through LinkedIn rather than Sales Navigator?
Yeah, I tell you what, very good question. When I first started using Dux-Soup, and I think Dux-Soup fixed this problem, what really kind of annoyed me was that there was messages going between LinkedIn Free and Sales Navigator. So when I was running it for clients, they'd have to look in 2 places. But if you notice, when you create a campaign, you can select whether it's Sales Navigator you want the messaging to go to, or LinkedIn. So what I do now, and the trick is that when you pull out a profile in a spreadsheet, you need to change when you do the upload, which is the revisit, that's getting the data back in, you need to change the header to profile, and you need to use the public profile. Public profile points to the LinkedIn, so you'll never hit Sales Navigator profile, if that makes sense. So that's the way to manage the process. So you want to just make sure that you delete, because you'll see sales profile, you'll see, I think public profile, and that's the one you want, public profile.
Okay, all right. Hopefully that's answered Lindsay's question then. I think that's fairly clear. So she has asked, now this is a bit niche, I'm not sure you'll know this one. Do you see the acceptance rate relating to a client's industry? And then he's asked, or she has asked, what is the average acceptance rate for SaaS companies?
Yeah, that's, you know what, I haven't gone to that level of detail actually. All I've done at the moment is I'm looking at the acceptance rate as you see it in the dashboard for a given client. But in terms of all the clients I'm running it for, I haven't really done that analysis yet, to be fair. But all I can say, it is pretty genuine from all the clients I've been running it for that, you know, if you kind of take that approach with a message and you follow the sort of the first sequence, you will get around 20 to 25%. If you start to use the sequence I gave you, you will see. I mean, you saw my screen. I'm averaging about almost 50% now. I'm running another client actually over the same time frame. He's also at 50%. So, and the client I shared with you was a bit lower at 33, 35%. But that's as far as I've got in terms of the analysis, unfortunately.
So now you'll have to bear with me now. I'm reading them all live. I had done a little bit of prep in advance, so if I'm a little bit wishy-washy, just bear with. We've got a very specific question about client 5. What was the meeting rate?
What was the meeting rate?
Client 5.
Do you mean, I'm not sure if that means actually like engaging or like, what's the word? I've forgotten the Dux-Soup word now, but essentially, I think if I've understood that question correctly, how many people sort of followed through with a meeting?
Yeah.
In that case, off the top of my head, although the acceptance rate was at 80%, I don't think it was too high because most of the people wasn't interested in the job, if that makes sense. So probably got a handful of people actually talking about the job. And in fact, if I remember, this was actually one I did in another country, and everyone that came back said the job's too far, which I thought was really interesting. That's too far for me, I can't go there. So that was the feedback. But the point here is a lot of people engaged with it, but they were just the wrong group because of distance. So maybe actually he should go back to using the regional kind of filter for that list.
Okay. Could you have a look? Well, actually, there's a question here about the sequencing, but I think we're going to send the video out later. We're also going to turn this into a blog. So Lindsay, watch out for the webinar when it comes through later, and you can have a look at that yourself on the slides. For anyone who wants the slides as well, we will also have a PDF of those available. So if you go to info@dux-soup.com, then we can send those through to you. Let's have a look at this one. So we've got some questions here about best practices using Dux-Soup and the safety features.
Yes.
I'll let you talk about that because it kind of works, I think, hand in hand with some of your campaign strategy as well.
Yeah. Is there a specific question or?
Yeah, well, they're just saying what are the best practices for using Dux-Soup?
Best practices. Okay, right. So it's a generalized question. Right. So very straightforward. From what I've learned is if you pay Sales Navigator, okay, so you're paying that £80 a month, you can run the default settings of Dux-Soup, no problem, okay, and you will never hear anything. Touch wood. What I noticed was that I had some clients, of course, that they didn't want to use Sales Navigator, and they were using just LinkedIn, the free version. If you run it at 25, I've seen warnings come back at 25. Now I say, there's more to it. It's not just the connection rate at 25. There's visits. So my gut feeling actually is that it's. I think Dux-Soup does around 100 visits or so at the sort of default level, and my feeling is it's a little bit high. So what I tend to do for free people that have got free LinkedIn is I dial it down actually. So I never go up. So if a client says, Elvin, I want to do 100 a day, I'll never do it. I always say I'll stick to 25 and I only go lower. And I tend to do 10 connection requests for free LinkedIn. And I do 50 visits a day and 50 messages a day. So those are my default settings. So I typically will always onboard a client in that manner. And since I've been doing that, I've not had any issues, no warnings, nothing.
Okay. I think it's worth saying for those who are new to using Dux-Soup that when you start using it, we make sure that the default settings are in line with LinkedIn's process and standards. So it's only if you start messing around with them and changing them that you might find you get yourself into a little bit of trouble.
Do you want me to share my screen and just quickly show you the where that is?
Do it.
If that's helpful. Yeah, bear with me. So, okay, so if you go to throttling, so the visiting profiles, the robot speed, I don't really change this. It's pretty quick actually, so I leave it as it is. It's all here, and it's written in red anyway in terms of warning. So if I dial it down, I'll click that box and I'll select 50 visits. I'll go 10 and I'll do 50, and that's it. And I usually leave the random on. So that's how you dial it down. And otherwise, if the client's paying for Sales Navigator, I won't touch the boxes at all and leave it on the default settings. So that's what I do.
And I think everyone probably saw there, but in the profile visits, you can click down and say leave it to us, and that means that Dux-Soup has already set it to the limited. It won't go over the limits that LinkedIn give you guidance on. Let's look. We've got a few others. Do you actually sell, and at what stage of the process would you try and do that? That's from Stuart.
Do I actually sell? So I don't know if that's more of a Dux-Soup question, but everything that I'm doing is kind of the front end of selling. Yeah. So it's all about going out to the audience, the list, engaging with that list in a systematic way. And then when they come back, it's really for the client, my client, to do the sale. It's not really for me to do that. Yeah. Because I'm running the technology, I'm running Dux-Soup. I found you a candidate, they've interested, they've connected. Now it's over to you. So funny enough, I don't really engage too much in conversation with my clients in terms of too often in terms of what the follow through, which is sort of the back end of the selling in terms of arguably the most important. But I have seen in terms of return on investment in terms of what I'm charging versus what they make is around 10 times. So, which I'm quite happy with and they're quite happy with. But like I said, my focus really is the first part, and I let them do the second part because they're doing the selling. I think it's really important to make that distinction because I don't think Dux-Soup is there to sell for you, actually. I think it's there to initiate and begin that process, and it can go to a lot of people, but when they come back, you need to put your sales hat on and actually make your sale. That's my opinion.
I think we tend to focus on the kind of doing a lot of the manual work at the front end that frees you up then to do the direct selling at the end.
Yeah, exactly. So it's about getting meetings in the diary, and then once you've got them in the diary, it's over to you to do the human sort of element. I think that's why it blends quite nicely, right? Because arguably these people won't know that you use the machine, and that's when you've done it efficiently.
Yeah. Here we've got another one. Do you have any suggestions on creating regional lists? So Amy has said, I'm in Denver, but open to other regions. Is there such a thing as casting your net too wide?
I think it depends on what you're selling, to be honest with you. I think, if you're casting your net wide, there's got to be a reason for them to engage and obviously, have an interest in what you're selling, right? That's the most important part. If your product ticks that box, like for me, I'm selling trading technology or consultancy, so I'm going out to I haven't gone out to every country yet, but eventually I probably will. But as long as you go to the right people, so for me, I go to heads of trading desks. I go to people that will care about the trading technology to offer my services, and it doesn't matter what country that is. So that's me casting my net really wide, but it's a specific person on the other end, and I think that would be my advice. If you're going outside of Denver, who is it that you're going to target, and why would they be receptive to your proposal? But my only advice on the regional aspect was, again, I'm in a much smaller region in St. Albans. It's just a very personable approach to go, let's have a coffee, let me learn about what you do, and it's easy for me to do that, you know. So in
Yeah.
larger areas, it's probably a bit harder to do that. I appreciate
Not so much.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Question about your spreadsheet when you're uploading it. Is that uploading it directly into Dux-Soup?
So are we talking about the revisit? Or are we talking about the Google Sheet that, so I guess I can answer both just in case. If you are taking a sheet using the scan feature and you're going to manipulate the sheet, you have to go back to Dux-Soup and hit revisit. And I'll just quickly show you that just so that we can be clear. So you click on the duck, see here, revisit data, you click on that, and then you pop your sheet in there. And then what you do is you run the robot over that list. So it will populate the list and you actually assign it to the campaign at this point. And that's how Dux-Soup knows that's the list it's got to target. My Google Sheet, this is nothing to do with Dux-Soup in the sense that all the data that's coming from Dux-Soup feeds into the Google Sheet. This doesn't talk to Dux-Soup. Nothing goes back. It's a one-way road. But it just enables me to, you know, cut the data, analyze the data, and so forth. So I can quickly see on this little dashboard, you know, week on week, because you know, daily doesn't really mean anything as such because people are not accepting every day. So I kind of look at the weekly view, and this is interesting. So, you know, last week it was 36% and now 75%. So I've had a great week this week, and it's only Tuesday, right? So
good work. Sorry, just multitasking and replying to somebody while I can do.
it's okay.
Jim whistles. I'm just on a response to you. Automation for you. Sorry about that. There we go. Right, that one is just saying thank you. What are the, now this is a bit of a broad statement. So what are the most advisable steps to achieve better results regarding campaigns? Maybe pick your top.
Yeah, so to be honest, I would just follow my sequence on the presentation, you know, because I try to structure it in that way. And again, I won't go through all the details, but like literally, you know, you want to start with the right list, you know, use the right filters, use the Boolean filters. You know, it is, you know, a numbers game, so to speak, but you know, you don't want to go to 1,000 people. Sometimes it's better to go to 50 people because they're the most, you know, probably a list that probably cares about what you do. So my advice is, you know, don't use big lists, keep it to maximum 250. And then do the quality check. You know, that's really important because you don't want your audience to know it's a robot. So create the right list, and then from a campaign structure, well, try the sequence I've mentioned with the blank message. See how you get on. There's another subtle benefit to doing that. Connection request messages are 300 characters, and I'm sure people have fallen into this trap. If you use the dynamic filters like first name, last name, company, if you consume the 300 characters and you know, in the body of that message, and you send a connection request, if it pops on and his name is like I don't know, I'm thinking Sebastian, it's not really the longest name, but it's a long name, you will actually truncate your message because it now needs to you know, use those characters for that first name. And if a company name is like, you know, 10 words long, you've suddenly truncated your message even further. So the end of your message will look really strange. So if you put your introductory, you know, thanks for connecting message in follow-up 1, you get your 2,000 characters actually. So you have less of that problem to worry about any of that dynamic nature. So, but just something to think about. So yeah, try the sequence, see if it works for you, and just measure. I'd advise everyone should be measuring the data and trying to improve month on month and not just going in blindly, for sure.
So here's another one then, looking at those, the data you're bringing back. Have you looked, this is from Ian Smith, have you looked at the response rate for different days of the week?
Yeah, you know, I was thinking about this the other day. I try not to put too much focus on that. It's tempting because I've got that data. And actually, you know what's really interesting, like holidays, you know, a half term, it's, to be honest, it's going to be quite tedious. I've got a lot of spreadsheets to analyze, and I probably just don't have the time at the moment. But I sort of focus, I try to think that if I do a connection request today, more often than not, and I will say that even in my dashboard, those acceptances are not necessarily sent today, accepted today. It could have been sent today, but connected tomorrow, does that make sense, and captured in that way. So sometimes the spreadsheet will be over 100% because I said nothing today, but it was sent last week and they accepted today. So it will show, like, one person would be 100%, for example. So yeah, I haven't done that analysis, in short, basically, but maybe at some point, I don't know.
Let's have a look at another one. Can we still connect to the webhook to analyze the data, even if we only use Dux-Soup Pro?
I think it's still available, but that's probably going to be a Giles question. I do think it's available, but yeah, Joe, you might have to jump in there.
I'm not Giles, so I will also check and come back. But if that question, that's from Noreen, if you email info, then they'll be able to answer that.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I've never used Pro. So as soon as I started using it, I went straight to Turbo.
I thought you started out. Oh, I'm sorry, I threw that one at you.
Yeah.
Let's have a look at the next one. It's about Boolean searches. Does Dux-Soup save your Boolean criteria in the saved search for a campaign?
You know what, I think it does. I'm just going to share my screen again. You know, when you click on this box here, no, sorry, I thought it was going to save it there. I think when you hit save searches, it will save the 147 people, but it will probably forget the fact that that was in place, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I can't think of a smart way of doing that. I guess what you can do is scan it, and then when you get the spreadsheet, you can just call the tab, put your data in the spreadsheet, and that's how you can remember what you did. Yeah, that might be the way to do it.
Yeah, okay. Let's see what else we've got. If you've made the mistake of too big a list in Sales Navigator, do you clear it all and start over, or try to filter from the CSV or Excel file?
So, okay, so what I do is, well, I would never go into Excel or do the scan until it's 500 or less. So if I'm planning a campaign and I want to hit, I don't know, pharmacies, right? I'll start doing the filtering, and then I will keep adding filters until it gets to 500, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I might throw in some Booleans. I might just keep playing with it. And actually, there's one really smart way of filtering the data that I'll let you know. The other day, wrongfully or rightfully, I should say, the client said to me, Elvin, can you just filter on men? I just want to hit men. And I thought, okay. So I was like, how do I do this? Now, I researched it, and LinkedIn doesn't allow you to do it because it's kind of a violation of segregating discrimination and so forth. I thought that's fair enough. So what I did was I copied I put everything to Excel. I had 500 names, and then I took the first name column, copied it into ChatGPT, and I told ChatGPT, tell me if it's a boy's name or girl's name or unisex, and then add another column. And then bang, it came back, put it back into Excel, job done, filtered on boys. So for those that, I don't know if anyone uses it, but that's the other thing. I use this thing religiously. So if anyone wants any tips around that, that was a quick way to filter.
Fabulous. I love all these tips. They're great. And so is everyone else, by the way. Amy's asked us a few questions already. She's come back and said thank you. Let's see. I'm going to have to ask, actually, that we don't get any more questions in there, I'm afraid, because we're really short on time. I've just got a few final ones. We've answered that one. Let me get rid. We've answered that one. Let me get rid. Hang on one second. Let me just read to make sure this one makes sense before I read it out aloud.
Sure.
Oh, everyone's panicking now. What happens if you contact a user via a campaign using a client's profile and they interact with them before a follow-up message is sent? based on the predefined step? I think I could probably answer that one, but I'll let you do it anyway.
Yeah, so very important to understand how this works in Dux-Soup. So the way it operates is you'll notice a setting, and I will share my screen actually while I talk about this. Give me a second. So if you go into options and go to connect, you'll see this thing here, message bridge, run check every 10 minutes. Now, effectively every 10 minutes it should be checking, and this is subject to the schedule. So obviously if the robot's off, that's not going to be doing it. If it's on, it will run, and it'll tell you the last time it ran. Every 10 minutes, every 20 minutes. So I've seen this actually once where literally it was within, I think, about 3 or 4 minutes, the client responded to the robot, whatever they said, and the robot within 2 minutes went back with the follow-up message. And then it was like, did you not see my message? And then obviously my client had to kind of dress it up a little bit, right? So I think that's what you're referring to. It's really important to know. Now, I normally, to be honest, I'm a bit surprised that this is 10 because I don't usually change it, and I normally have it at 20. But in any case, yes, so this will check every 10 or 20 minutes, whatever you set, to see if the messages have come in. And that's its way of updating what to do. Now, if you run follow-up message sequences within days, so say you do message 1 now, and you do message 2 2 days later, message 3 2 days later, you run the risk of this actually not running, and someone actually the robot kind of replying when they reply, so that you actually reduce the probability having follow-up messages be longer, so 4 or 5 days, 1 week. So that would be my recommendation.
Okay, that's great. We do still have a few coming in, but as I said, I'm really sorry, we're going to have to stop it there. But we do have lots of thank yous coming in, which is really lovely. So thank you for that.
Okay, no worries. No, it's been great.
It's been a great session, Elvin. Thank you. There's been loads and loads of information there.
Well, for anyone that wants to, get in touch, just hit me on LinkedIn and ask me the question. I'm very happy to answer it there.
That's brilliant. And in your, as I said, we'll send the, no, we won't send it out. The recording will be available later for everybody. If you get in touch with info, I haven't PDF'd it yet, so give me 10 minutes after the session. I'll make sure that the support team on the info email will have the PDF version of the slides, so they'll be able to get your contact email address in there as well, Elvin, because you've added that too.
Sure, yeah.
And I think all that's left for me to say is, if you could just click onto the next slide, please, Elvin, I can just let everyone know that our next webinar is on the 27th of June, when Giles will be back from his overseas tour. He's going to be looking at how to create LinkedIn lists from scratch with Dux-Soup. So he'll be looking at navigating LinkedIn to find your target prospects, optimizing your search results with LinkedIn and Sales Navigator, creating customized lists for targeted outreach, and uploading lists into Dux-Soup so that you can do, manage your campaigns much easier. And if you click onto the next one, please.
Yeah.
Then this is just a reminder about the cap. So, Elvin's got his. I took mine off because I was too bad. I apologise. But yeah, we'd love to have your reviews, on Dux-Soup, on the webinars, on what we're doing. So, if you haven't used Dux-Soup, I've put the link in for you to register for our free trial, which is available to everybody. That gives you access to all the turbo features. So if you have a play on there, drop us a line, give us some information about your reviews. We'd love to have them, and we will send you a cap if you send one on. The next slide is just a reminder that, and I had a couple of questions about this as well, actually. Do we do one-to-one calls? Yes, we do. So Giles and Will van der Zanden, they both like to get on the technical side to have a chat with you. So if you would like a one-to-one, then go onto our services page on the website, and you can register for a booster session or a technical session, and the details are on there. And I think all it leaves me to say now is thank you for everyone who's attended and for sticking with us right to the bitter end. Thank you, Elvin, for a really informative session. It's lovely that you've been able to dip in and out as well and show people exactly how to do some of these things. I think it's been really helpful. So thank you all, and hopefully we'll see a lot of you in 2 weeks' time.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye, everyone. Bye, guys.
Bye. Bye-bye.